Michigan State football, they had a scrimmage on Saturday. Who shined in that, and what did Jonathan Smith have to say about it? Well, let's find out.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But hey, guys, this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for kicking off your day with us here at Locked On Spartans. Your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below how you're feeling about the season, which is now less than 3 weeks away from kicking off. My goodness gracious, what a beautiful and almost like scary time of the year. My goodness, where did the summer go? But with football on the horizon, makes swallowing that pill a little easier. If you ever want to reach out, LockedOnSpartans@gmail.com with any questions, segment ideas, any concerns, or you already got some good bets that you want me to hop along with. Yeah, again, LockedOnSpartans@gmail.com. All right, let's get into the mix here. On Saturday, our Michigan State football Spartans, they competed in a scrimmage. And yes, we are going to get to it now. We're taking some time gathering all the information, letting Jonathan Smith get some quotes about it before we sounded off on it. And away we go. What we do know about this very secretive scrimmage is that 100-plus plays were run, and we don't really even know the format of it or if there was a score or anything attached to it. But what we do know right off the bat is that the defense a little further along than the offense, but hey, it's a whole new offense they are installing. The bones of the defense already kind of somewhat there. At least you're returning 75% of production from that side of the ball, so that could be also another reason why they are a little further along. But outside of that, the football team, they posted a little 30-second cut-up video on Twitter, so there was no frame that lasted more than 2 seconds, and yeah, you best believe we will dissect that later this show, but I know you come here for more than just that. So really quick, before any more scoops on the scrimmage, shout out to Spartans Illustrated. They had a forum post about a ton of details in the scrimmage that they were able to unearth. Speaking of that, Spartans Illustrated, promo code SmithEra75 for 75% off of your first year. That deal is going till Friday. So SmithEra75 for 75% off your first year. That is a steal. But 2 points in that forum that we are going to talk about here is, number one, some standout players. So it writes that the standout players who were mentioned were tight end Jack Velling, running back K'Ron Lynch-Adams, linebacker Jordan Turner, and defensive tackle Alex VanSumeren. They also went on to say that now healthy VanSumeren's name has been brought up multiple times recently. Now, those 4 names, okay, kind of a different path for all 4 popping up on this scrimmage star list. Like Jack Velling, duh. Like at this point, we're expecting Jack Velling to have a monster year coming up. Jonathan Smith, a guy that's very muted with his praise for a lot of players. He's very careful with what he says about certain players, doesn't want to gas anyone up too high. With that said, not too long ago, he just said Jack Velling could be one of the best tight ends, not just in the conference, but in the country, okay? He was a top tight end touchdown pass catcher in the nation last year. I mean, heck, if you want to go to the virtual world, for NCAA football 2025, he's the top-rated Spartan. So, yes, a lot of luster around Jack Velling's name. Of course he shined at the scrimmage. K'Ron Lynch-Adams. Now, if you listen to our episode with Hunter Stahl of Pro Football Focus yesterday, this might not be a surprise because he was one of the higher-graded players last year on Pro Football Focus, did a fantastic job, 1,100 rushing yards for UMass last year. And no, it wasn't just against a bunch of lower-level Group of 5 schools. He also had north of 100 yards against Auburn, okay? So this is a kid that, built like Nate Carter, is also going to bring some thunder to the run game. This isn't going to be, okay, Nate Carter, that's your bowling ball back, and then, hey, this transfer they got, that's your jitterbug. He's more the quick guy. Like, no, Nate Carter and K'Ron Lynch-Adams, 2 very similar games, so they will just plug each other in one by one. Jordan Turner, multi-year starter at linebacker for Wisconsin. Might not be a surprise that he shined, but guys, let's get to Alex VanSumeren because, oh, man. Yeah, it's hard to go into this season with tempered expectations for one Alex VanSumeren now. Before going any further, I'm still sure that Daquan Dowse, the transfer from Georgia Tech, and Maverick Hansen, a guy that's here, I think 6th year of college coming up for Maverick Hansen, the lone Mark D'Antonio commit, still sticking around this program. I think they will still be the starters. But wow, is Alex VanSumeren getting a lot of praise on the record, off the record, coming out of this scrimmage. It's been a big offseason for Alex VanSumeren. And look, he played 4 games as a true freshman, preserved his red shirt. Last year, we all know the story, big leg injury, missed the entire season. So the big talking point, at least on this podcast, has been, you know what, sure, 2 years ago, he was the top recruit in Michigan State's class. Okay, top 250 player, of course, at defensive tackle. There's a lot of expectations around him. But when you have a big injury coming off the heels of just playing 4 games the year before, not only is there an injury to worry about, wondering if he will get to 100% or what his 90% could even look like, but that's also missing a big year of development. His second year of college was basically experienced on the sidelines. So we've been saying that, yes, 4-star, shiny new toy from 2 years ago. Let's maybe push the brakes on expectations, but that's been getting erased, guys, right? Because in between when we started talking like that in the spring and what we have heard about him now, man, this is a floor raiser for this group, just right off the top, just his presence alone. Let's say that he was just 80% off his injury. Even an 80%, Alex VanSumeren at the very least would raise the floor, okay? Solid backup, right? But if he's going to blossom into this 4-star, into this top 250 kid that he was tabbed to be out of high school, man, this is going to raise the ceiling, not just for him, but of course the rest of that position group. Pair him with Ben Roberts. Look, if he is also going to be another 4-star guy, or a former 4-star guy, I should say, that's going to hit his ceiling here in his third year of college, like that's going to complement DeQuan Dowse and Maverick Hansen quite handsomely. Like that bodes so well for the defensive tackle room. And that, of course, is a storyline going into the season. You lost Simeon Barry, you lost Derek Harmon. The pass rush could use some help. Of course, it's going to come from the outside, but the inside can certainly help those efforts too. And in the Big Ten, yes, running the ball is still going to be priority number 1 for a lot of schools out there, especially the ones in the middle of that schedule, your Iowas of the world. Michigan, they might not even have a quarterback this year that can throw the ball more than 10 yards, but you know what? They're still going to have a really strong run game. You have strong performances out of Alex VanSumeren to start the year, Ben Roberts to pair it with Maverick Hansen, DeQuan Dowse. Guys, that bodes really well going into the season to hear Alex VanSumeren's name over and over again. The second point that we're going to take from Spartans Illustrated is the starting cornerbacks. Now, the first one, not a surprise, Ed Woods. All right, like this kid didn't transfer away from Arizona State, where he was going to be a starter for the Sun Devils this upcoming year. Pro Football Focus had him ranked as one of the top Pac-12 corners in their conference last year. He didn't come to Michigan State and also turn down going to Alabama just so he could ride the bench. Like him being a starter at the scrimmage Saturday, not a surprise. Now, it is a little bit of a surprise, unless you've listened to the show last week where we talked about Charles Brantley, surprising a lot of people in practice. That was your second starting cornerback. I mean, and look, rewind the clock a little bit. A few weeks ago, I would be shocked to see Charles Brantley in the mix here. And that's because Chance Rucker, the true sophomore who played many a snaps as a true freshman last year, I just thought that'd be the presumed starting corner. But no, we asked around, said, hey, who's surprising in practice? And Chuck Brantley's name was thrown around by a few people. That is matched with him starting on Saturday. So we bring that up for 2 reasons. One is, don't give up on the 15-time starter just yet. Yes, he just played in 3 games last year, but this guy does have starting experience under his belt. I know that we've all seen the clips against Ohio State, and he's been on so many Ohio State wide receivers draft day films. He's been on the run end of a lot of highlights, but a solid player still lives within Charles Brantley. And the second reason, just to admit, that is a little bit of a surprise here to see that he's going on that strong this fall camp. So again, that's something we talked about last week of, yes, Charles Brantley's name was sticking out. You also had Luke Newman, Alex VanSumeren, Ben Roberts. So it pays to listen to Locked On Spartans. That's right, guys. So that's what we got here. That was just 2 of the bullet points of the many bullet points over at Spartans Illustrated. So again, guys, Spartans Illustrated, go subscribe there. Smith Era 75 for 75% off your first year. We got other scrimmage notes. We got quotes. We got notes from Jonathan Smith, from Brian Wozniak. But first, need to talk your ears off about FanDuel Sportsbook. Guys, if you're itching to get in on the action for Michigan State football, mosey on over to America's #1 sportsbook. Of course, we are talking FanDuel because as things stand right now, your Michigan State Spartans, 11.5-point favorites over the Florida Atlantic Owls. So if you're feeling spicy, if you like what we just had to say about the scrimmage so far, go ahead. Hey, America's number one sportsbook is waiting for you over at FanDuel. But guys, hey, until now, Olympics are gone. Playoffs are long gone, and the sports are not sporting like we want them to, but FanDuel is keeping me going by letting me bet on sports whenever I want. All I got to do is open up the app and dream up bets whenever I am in the mood. And yes, even in the dog days of summer, that is still quite often here. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, not just new customers, but all customers get a boost or a bonus daily this summer. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So just visit FanDuel.com and make the most out of your summer. Again, guys, it's FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And before getting back into the mix here, hey, thank you so much for making Locked On Spartans your first listen every single day. Now, go over to Locked On College Football for your second listen. It's our guy, Spencer McLaughlin. He's going to break down conference realignment, NIL, transfer portal, the changing landscape of college athletics, or never mind all that boring stuff, right? How about the actual games that are starting very soon? Week 0 is knocking on the door, so head on over to Locked On College Football. It's available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Now, other scrimmage notes. Again, guys, 100-plus plays were run on Saturday, and this is our favorite part, no long-term injuries. It's all clap. That's just great news. All right, one scrimmage down and no long-term injuries. Now, we will say this. It's not a clean bill of health for Michigan State across the board. Brendan Parachek, again, not a participant at today's practice, okay? And not a participant the last few days of practice, your leading receiver from last year, Montorie Foster. Now, it's not long-term. Again, like Jonathan Smith did say up front, he's missed the last few days. We don't expect this to be long-term. Beyond that, not sure what exactly the injury is, but you could maybe kind of expect him to be on the field in less than 3 weeks here to kick the things off. Now, I will say this, and maybe this is just, selfishly me talking as someone that, talks about Michigan State 5 days a week, but I think a lot of fans will find some solace in this or some relief in this, is the difference between this staff and the last staff as it pertains to talking about injuries. Because, just selfishly, a peek behind the curtain here, I was wrestling with the Montorie Foster thing because I found out to start the week, at the end of the weekend, actually, that Montorie Foster's hurt. Okay, I was like, you know what? Is that something I mentioned on this show? I pick and choose, what bits and pieces of information to share with everyone out there, because I don't want to get into hot water, and I don't want the people sharing this information to get into hot water either. So I'm wrestling with this, like, oh, God, I don't think I'm going to bring it up because I don't know how long of an injury it's going to be. It's, oh, God, well, maybe Smith will say something about it, but I probably not. Coaches don't like talking about injuries. And then right off the rip at today's media availability, he just addresses it himself. I don't even know if anyone asked about Montorie Foster. He might have just willingly offered it up. So, my goodness gracious, guys. We get a coach that actually talks very transparent about injuries. Whereas last year, if Montorie Foster got mauled by a tiger at practice or the scrimmage or wherever he got hurt, and that tiger was seen dragging his legs out of the stadium, it would have been dressed up as, oh, yeah, no, he's a little sore. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Whereas Smith is just getting in front of it, being like, yep, he's hurt. He hasn't been here. He will be okay. So, guys, we get injuries. We get timelines. This is just, it's a nice breath of fresh air. There was something to being secretive about injuries last year, but as a very nervous Nilly, and maybe you're like this too out there, I like knowing who's going to be available on the field, not just for practice, but coming out this season. So thank you, Jonathan Smith, for, giving us a few more extra minutes, if not hours of sleep, depending on how nervous you are out there. Now, there were 2 battles that Smith kind of commented on. Offensive line, we think that it's a pretty solid starting group right now. Your tackles, Brandon Baldwin, Ashton Lepo, and then in the middle, Luke Newman, Tanner Miller, Christian Phillips. He did comment, though, that at left tackle, Brandon Baldwin and Stanton Rammel are both getting work. He also mentioned true freshman Rakeem Johnson out of Boise, Idaho. And Rakeem Johnson was a guy that, some recruiting experts out west said that this is a kid that has flown so under the radar. But look, even as an under the radar 3-star, you don't expect them to contribute as a true freshman. So we'll wait and see how much stock to really put into that. But it is interesting that Stanton Rammel is getting work at that left tackle position. Now, this was a kid, 4-star, top 400 recruit. There was a lot of schools that were after his services, but just like Alex VanSumeren, he missed all of last year with a big leg injury. So not only did he miss that development, on-field experience, but who knows how limited he is or if he's moving differently after that leg injury last year. But you know what? He's getting work, so that can mean one of two things or a cocktail of both of them. See, that Stanton Ramble is really coming along quick, injury be damned. Or, okay, maybe Brandon Baldwin not really taking a step forward from last season, or again, some mixture of both. I still think that it will be Baldwin starting at left tackle. Of course, we're going to update you guys if we ever think differently, but yeah, he did comment on what I thought was a pretty Loctite position group, that left tackle position. Now, the defensive backs, he did talk about, just how competitive it is in that room, and that's one of the nice things about having a deep room. Of course, you got your returners, your Charles Brantleys, your Chance Ruckers, of course, but they brought in Legend Cavazos, Nikai Martinez, Ed Woods, who we just talked about. You tie in the safeties too, guys like Dylan Tatum, Malik Spencer. Like that is a talented room now. So the competitiveness in that room has been ramped up. And that, guys, that's just great. They could use any help possible, whether it's a new coaching staff, okay, check, or just more experience and talent to sharpen themselves with. So thank goodness there. Brian Wozniak, he also spoke to the media too, and that's the tight ends coach, in case anyone doesn't know. Brian Wozniak, and we're going to talk about a tight end that we actually haven't talked about a ton on this show. We've talked about Jack Velling. We've talked about Brennan Parachek. We think the world of both of those kids, but Michael Masunis getting a lot of love at today's media availability. Brian Wozniak, he mentioned Masunis, saying, quote, he's had as solid of a camp as anyone. Okay, Jack Velling, he spoke with the media today too. He echoed a lot of that, saying that he's pretty much solid at everything he does. He also got love from Darius Snow. He shouted him out. So the Michael Masunis marketing team was out in full force today, and for good reason. This is a kid that came out of high school, 6'5", right now 260-ish, out of Tucson, Arizona. And even when he was coming out of high school, 3-star kid, but he was known as a solid pass catcher and solid blocker. This isn't one of the tight ends where, okay, he's more of a blocker. Yes, he has hands. Or, you know what? This kid is more of a pass catcher. You'll see him out wider in the slot. He does things right in the middle. He's a little bit of both. And so far, I mean, that's 3 people at today's media availability that talked about how strong of an offseason that he has been having. Now, last year, not a ton of experience on the field, 42 special team snaps, just 4 offensive snaps. He caught 1 pass at Ford Field last year, but you know what? This is a guy that does a little bit of both. And let's say Parachek's injury is something that keeps him sidelined going into the year. Well, of course, it's nice to have, a guy that is more than capable as Jack Velling's running mate going into this season. We bring this up all the time. Oregon State staff last year, which is by and large now Michigan State's offensive staff this year, they run a lot of 12 personnel, more than average in the country by, I think it was 12% they ran more of that personnel. And what that is, 1 running back, 2 tight ends. They love to have multiple tight ends on the field. So Michael Masunis, that's right. That's a lot of love from the teammates right there. Now, Jack Velling, just one more comment about the scrimmage. He mentioned him and Wayne Matthews got into it. Now, I don't know if that means that, they took each other's cleats off and started swinging on one another or anything like that. But, high intensity at Saturday's scrimmage. Now, other than that, all we have is a 30-second video on Twitter dropped by the Michigan State football team. Again, no play was on the frame for more than 2 seconds. So this is what we were able to get here with our quick eyes. We saw 20-ish yard completion from Aiden Childs to Jerome Glover, rolling out to his right. So a nice little dime on the run there by Aiden Childs. We saw an interception by Brady Pretzloff, another one by Aaron Alexander. We saw Jack Velling. He had a catch in heavy contact. And then Childs ran in for a touchdown too. That's right. That's the crack reporting you get here from Locked On Spartans. We don't just get the inside scoops, but we break down Zapruder film style, frame by frame, of what happened at this scrimmage. Guys, we're going to talk about the AP poll and how it's going to impact Michigan State's season. But first, eBay Motors, guys. You already know this. Passion, drive, and patience. The folks at eBay Motors, they have the formula for winning championships and keeping your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. We're talking superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts. Let's say that again. I want to make sure you hear that number. Over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You will always find exactly what you are looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or it's your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home the huge wins. So what are you waiting for out there? Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. The AP poll came out today, and I'm just going to get ahead of it right now. Let's spoil it. No, Michigan State did not get any votes, let alone they are not in the top 25, which, fine, good. You know what? Let's, fly under the radar. Let's just surprise people this season. Let's mix it up, come into a season with absolutely zero expectations. I'm sure this is a welcome storyline for the players, too. A team that got a lot of stress, a lot of press last year. Regardless, this doesn't mean that the AP poll is just a zero of storylines for Michigan State, because they are in an exclusive club this year. And you can look at it both ways. Maybe it's a club you do want to be in, or maybe it's a club you don't want to be in. We will decide what kind of a person you are here in a hot second. But Michigan State plays number 2 Ohio State. They play number 3 Oregon. They play number 25 Iowa. And they play number 9 Michigan. If you know the schedule like the back of your own hand, you will catch that, all 4 of those games against those 4 ranked teams are all in a row. So Michigan State, this is the exclusive club they are in. They are one of 4 teams in the nation to have at least 4 games in a row against ranked teams. Houston is another one. South Carolina is another one. And if you're religious whatsoever, just start saying prayers for Florida this year, because they have to do this 5 times. They have 5 games in a row against AP-ranked opponents. The highest-ranked team, or lowest, whatever it is, the highest number, we'll put it that way, is number 13 LSU. The other 4 games they play in a row are all inside the top 13. So Billy Napier, the most pre-fired man in America, say a prayer for him. But yeah, back to our Michigan State Spartans. That's going to be a tough stretch. You already knew this. Now there's 6 ranked Big Ten teams total. USC, got to get used to this. They are ranked 23rd. Michigan State, of course, not playing them this year. And then Penn State clocking in at number 8. They're not playing the Nittany Lions this year. So there you have it with the AP poll. Now we're going to go swimming in the mailbag here. Again, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. If you ever want to reach out, just like David did, with a 2-pack of questions. The first one: do you ever try to say Locked On Spartans as many times as possible? Because I'd be throwing it in whenever, for the fact that it just rolls off the tongue. Sometimes at night I will, if I wake up at 3 a.m. wondering how hurt Brennan Parachek is, or wondering if Montorie Foster is going to miss a lot of the season. I'll just wake up and say Locked On Spartans, Locked On Spartans. Yeah, so I do that sometimes. But an actual question, he says, if you could take 3 players from the D'Antonio era to plug into this team this season to push them to the next level, who would it be and why? Every time I have an obvious answer, I talk myself out of it. Also, a big fan of the podcast. Keep up the great work. Hey, thank you, David. I really do appreciate that. You're the man over there. First and foremost, if you have any answers, hey, comment below on YouTube or hit us up, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. Now, I can see how you could talk yourself out of a lot of answers because, luckily, in the Mark D'Antonio era, no shortage of great candidates for this, but I've got 3 that I'm pretty locked in with right now. First and foremost, Jack Conklin. Okay, let's say even if Brandon Baldwin and not Ashton Lepo, Stanton Ramel are having a competition because they're just so good at that position, I don't care. You take the first-round draft pick tackle in Jack Conklin. You make that work. Protect the quarterback at all costs, especially this year where the team's only going to go as far as Aiden Childs goes. Just Jack Conklin, that is a zero debate right there. Now we start to get into the debatey waters here, because I'm going to go with 2 players on the defensive line. I'm going to go with Shalik Calhoun for number 2, because with how good he was, of course, at Michigan State, but also the body type fits right into that rush end position there. Can rush the quarterback, athletic enough to drop into pass coverage when need be. But Shalik Calhoun was an animal here at Michigan State. Basically willed Michigan State to those first 2 wins of the season back in 2013. So shout out to Shalik Calhoun. That's my number 2. And number 3, going to go with the interior defensive line, Jarrell Worthy. God, I just love Jarrell Worthy. He was just an absolute dog back in the early 2010 era. So, yes, hey, the departures of Derek Harmon, Simeon Barrow, yeah, that's a bummer. We plug that in with one Jarrell Worthy. Even if Alex VanSumeren and Ben Roberts are exploding and will explode this season, kind of like people expect them to after a few weeks of fall camp, you get it done in the trenches in football, especially college football. So, yes, we're going to go with 3 guys in the trenches. But, man, no shortage of honorable mentions here, right? Like the no-fly zone, Darqueze Dennard, Trey Waynes, or another defensive end, and Kenny Willekes, or who would say no to Le'Veon Bell? I mean, or Jeremy Langford, of course. Or do you want to go way back in the early D'Antonio days? How about some who? Greg Jones. Like, that guy was a certified dog. I think the linebackers are solid enough this year. Like, would he raise the floor of that room? Certainly. I just think you could use help elsewhere, but man, just giving Aiden Childs another guy to throw to, like a BJ Cunningham or a Mark Dell or an Aaron Burbridge. Like that, there is no shortage of great options. I'm going all 3 guys in the trenches here. So again, guys, if you got anyone else that you want to add, comment below on YouTube. Now, Holden writes in, this is a while ago, so I'm sorry it took me this long to get to this, Holden, but I just listened to your episode, and after I finished, I turned on the MSU U of M game from 2021, and it made me wonder, what is your all-time favorite MSU football game? Can't remember the last time you answered this question. Well, Holden, same here. And I swear this is one of the questions where whenever I'm asked, or whenever, someone asks you listening at home, whenever someone asks that question, you might be changing that answer just depending on the day, because, hey, just like the Antonio era players, there's no shortage of great Michigan State games from our past. So I broke it out to this. Top 3 games I've actually were lucky enough to be at. Number 1, obviously, like nothing's ever going to top this. The Rose Bowl in 2013. Was very lucky to be able to see that game in person as a student. That was my senior year, which, oh my God, was 10 years ago now at this point. I am old as dirt. Anyway, number 2, let's keep on going back and playing the hits from games 10 plus years ago when I was a student. Rocket, the Hail Mary game, like that was a euphoric atmosphere to be in, just like number 3, the Little Giants game. All right, that was insane to be at. No one in the stadium thought the fake field goal was coming. Now, games I've not been to, this is where it gets tough. I think I broke it down into 5 games right here. Number 1 has to be the 2013 Big Ten Championship game to get to that Rose Bowl. Number 2, trouble with the snap. You talk about a euphoric feeling. Look, I'm not a drug guy whatsoever. I'm a very boring person, but maybe I'm not a drug guy because I know I will never be able to chase and get that high. That 2015 game got me. Like, after that moment happened, I was like, well, that's the pinnacle of the feeling of life right there. You can't get much better than that. So that was good, just with how fast it all happened. As a game, of course, that Big Ten championship was a lot better, but oh man, just condensing that many emotions into a 10-second just a display of craziness. Nothing can top that. Anyway, number 3, the 2015 Big Ten championship game. And I'm comfortable ranking that behind a regular season game against Michigan because, well, if they don't win that Michigan game that we just talked about, they don't even get to that game. Same with the Ohio State game in 2015. That's also on this list. Or, God, the 2021 game that you just mentioned. Or, I mean, geez, it's crazy at the Cotton Bowl. The good one, the one that they actually succeeded in when they were down 20 points in the fourth quarter against Baylor. It's crazy that might not even be like a top 5 game of games I wasn't even that. But again, like, we are very blessed as Michigan State fans to have a good list of games. I just going off the top of head right now, like that 2017 game against Penn State with the rain out, like that was a super cool game to be at. I think maybe 20 or 30,000 fans eventually came back to the stadium, but if you close your eyes, you would have thought there were 70,000 people there. It was nuts, guys. So, Holden, thanks a lot for that question. And guys, thanks a ton for listening, for watching. We will be back tomorrow at the end of the week. Not 1, but 2 episodes with our guy, Justin Thinn of 24/7 Sports. But until then, take care of yourselves. We're one step closer to game day. It is almost here, guys. All right. Love you all.